All right, shall we get going? Let's start this. I think I start. We'd probably start. So we'll take what we're going. All right, everyone, welcome. If you're here or if you're watching or if you're watching later or whatever it is, however you got here, thank you for being here. Welcome back to Dreams to Reality, our conversations with entrepreneurs. We're excited for everything that happened in our first, season, the people we talked to and the remarkable things that are being done, but excited to kick off this next one and really excited to have Marcelle Fontenot here. Who gets to be interviewed now? And you don't
this
have to,
is so strange.
Yeah, this is great. You don't have to.
Normally I'm over there.
I know,
So being on this side.
It's sort of reaffirmed that you are the guest and you are here to share. And thank you so much for being here. And to look at being a news anchor is entrepreneur. I mean, you are the product. The news is the news. And,
right.
So I guess to start off. When did you first think hey, I think I want to do this? Well, actually, no, let's do this instead. You're at a new place. Mm-hmm. Where can people find you now if they haven't been able to find you and they've been trying to get you to come in their house?
People can find me now at News 15.
Okay.
We've been there since October. Jim and I both, Jim Homo, my co-anchor. We started in October and we hit the air January 2nd.
Sure.
And it has been a thrilling few weeks. Lots of things to learn, but what really has been the best part of it all is the response we've gotten from former viewers who've made the transition, new viewers who are joining us at this part of our journey, and it's been humbling and wonderful. So News 15 is where we are. We're there 5, 6, and 10 o'clock. We have a full slate of newscasts there. There's the morning show, a noon show, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 9, and a 10.
Okay.
So whenever you're feeling like it, just turn it on and
you'll be able to find it.
You'll be able to find us.
Find you at some point. All right, so how did you get into the idea of news broadcasting? I assume that it started by you running to your parents, ratting out your siblings.
No,
that was
no,
news.
that is...
Mom and Dad, this just in.
That's not
Steven
who I am.
broke my toy.
By nature, I am quiet and shy, so running to tell was not my thing.
Okay, that wasn't the news you were breaking.
That wasn't the news I was breaking. At about 6 or 7 years old, I sat on the set, a news set at the Children's Museum in New Orleans.
Okay.
And I was kind of hooked after that. And so as I continued through school, my elementary school had a newscast on the local cable network. I'm from Opelousas, so that's home for me. And and so
I always get Opelousas, right? Let people know.
Opelousas is the smallest big town you ever find. There's always some connection there, but there was a little local television station, and so the schools would go in and do their school news, and I was the anchor for the school news. And in high school, I was emceeing events and doing things, and it just kind of fell into place. Mm-hmm. When I went to college, I majored in mass comm and broadcasting. I did an internship at KATC actually, and then after graduation, I worked in government relations for a minute, and then got an opportunity to become a part of the staff, and the rest is history.
So you knew at such an early age. I mean, it's I feel like sometimes we end up talking to entrepreneurs who maybe had their idea forever, mm-hmm. but how does it look like to you, you being the product? I mean, you're there, you're reporting on the news, but it's you.
It is. I don't think about it that way.
Okay.
I sit there every day, 5 days a week, 3 times a day, and I tend not to think about myself. I think about what I'm doing and the fact that what I'm saying is impacting somebody's life. Unfortunately, in some cases, it's a negative thing. But even when it's positive, it's okay, someone is on the receiving end of the words that I am saying right now, and I need to make sure that that is delivered in an understandable manner, and that the most important elements of the content that I have are able to reach the viewer how they need them. Okay. So yes, I am the product in some ways, but I
how you deliver the message is going to matter. I mean, like,
oh, it absolutely matters.
And,
and fortunately, my mantra or what I tell myself is just be who you are.
Yeah.
It's easier to understand. Is there an anchor voice? Yes, but is there?
We're gonna do some anchor voice later because I want to see how you can just turn it on and off.
Okay. Is there a real difference in who Marcelle is at the desk and who I am when you meet me at the grocery store? No. And I think that is what resonates with viewers, is that I'm a human being and not a robot, and that I live here too, and I can relate to these same things, and it impacts me just the way it impacts you.
But it is that, and again, like that parallel to entrepreneurship where you're always representing yourself.
Oh,
you
always.
know? And so, like, when you go to the grocery store, you may go as Marcelle, the mom, going to get some groceries, but the moment you walk in into everyone else, it's like, oh,
that's
I saw
the
her on
news
TV.
lady.
Like,
Yeah.
that's the news lady. Like,
Always.
yeah.
And
you
that
can't turn that part off.
cannot.
Yeah.
And there are times that it's just like I just literally want to go in the store and come out. But if it weren't happening, then I know I wouldn't be doing something right.
That's a good point.
Yeah, if it were not happening and if I was just, people were oblivious, then I would know I'm doing something wrong. I'm not making a connection there. So those moments remind me that, yes, I sit in the studio and there's a camera there, and that's my element, right? Big room, lots of lights, cameras, but on the receiving end, on the backside that I don't see every day are people.
Yeah.
And so when I'm out and about, those are the things that remind me that what we do matters, and it is definitely touching and impacting someone.
How often is it you're getting bananas like a normal person does, and this person comes up to you and is like, it's so good to see you, and how often is it like, I don't know who you are?
And listen,
I've been going to your house every day, but
right.
This is not...
We're inside of your home. In some ways, in some of the most intimate moments of the day, you're having dinner, you're going to bed, and there are these two folks telling you about things that happened today. And people are very familiar with us, very familiar. They know us by name. They'll ask like about my kids and just all the things. And it can be a little off-putting. However, it's like, oh yeah, I'm with you at dinner. You are very familiar with me.
Yeah.
And then I have to say, like, well, what's your name and where do you live, and tell me a little bit about you, just so that the playing field gets evened just a little bit in that dialogue. And they're familiar with me, but as we talk more, that person isn't as much of a stranger.
Yeah. Or they were like, oh, this person has legs.
Yes.
Because otherwise, like, you're just a torso.
I am.
And that's all.
An
That's
arms
all they know.
that move,
Exactly. Move around, and that's really it. And you send it over to sports.
That's right.
The industry of becoming a news anchor is big but small. Like, a lot of people want to do it. Not a lot of people can do it. You've been doing it for almost 20 years. Just a little girl from Opelousas. Like, what was the mentality to get to the space where, like, no, I may be a little girl from Opelousas, but I'm gonna go and do that. I'll be on TV every night.
I knew it's what I wanted, so I was determined to do it. When I was in college and doing all the things and putting together these collegiate stories, and my internship, I was very intentional about, hey, I'm here, the little intern girl, like, can I go too? The eagerness of it. So I tried to make sure I put myself in positions where I was learning something, and that those who had some authority and were decision makers understood that I was intentional. I started at Channel 3 at 24 years old, and within my first, I thought I would just stay 2 years. You go and you sign a contract, and that contract was for 2 years as a reporter, and I thought, okay, I'll do this, and then I'll move on and go somewhere else. Maybe doing the same thing, but learning it in a different space. And within that first 2 years, we had a couple anchor positions that came available, a morning show and weekend. And I applied for both. Not because I thought I would get them. I had zero experience compared to other people in the space. But because I wanted to be intentional about, hey, I know what it is that I want, and I want you to recognize that I'm serious about it. So I would apply. And then an opportunity presented itself where we needed an evening anchor. Remember, I'm just 2 years in, right? I'm 25, 26 at this age. And I did not apply.
Yeah.
Because I thought, there's no way. But that's fine. I was getting myself together and to make the transition to a new space because I was nearing the end of that contract term. And I was asked, like, why didn't you apply for the evening job? And I'm like, there's no way. If you didn't hire me for mornings and weekends, you are not putting me primetime evening.
Sure.
And I
But you had already said, I want this kind of stuff.
I did, but I, in my mind, I thought I needed to have X many of years experience, having done this, you know, all these things under my belt before I could get to that place.
Yeah.
And so I was told to apply, and I did, and I became the 6 o'clock anchor at 2 years into my career. Yeah.
Crazy. But I mean, but again, it speaks to that. You know, we talk to people consistently about go where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you want
and
to
surround
be
yourself
that,
with people who are doing that, and yeah.
Yeah, like you want to learn how to go out on location, do something, get in the van
and get there
and go to location with them and hold a mic or do something.
Yeah.
You know, like ask a question, and then the applying for things because you know you want to be there one day.
Mm-hmm. And I was told no.
Yeah.
You know, some no's are hard, but sometimes no's are necessary.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we talk about the role of failure a lot in
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship, and so like, you know, what was some failure that you were like, hey, I had all these things, but they were little f failure. They weren't.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't think of them as failure.
Yeah.
Failure can have a negative connotation there. I mean, I didn't see them as failure. They were just an opportunity to try again, an opportunity to learn more. You hear it in the moment, and it's like, oh man,
Yeah.
you know, we're human beings, and it affects us. But it was like, okay, well then there'll be another time in another space. But even once I was there and doing what I set out to do, there were still hurdles and there were still some failures and some no's along the way that I had to push myself to make my mark and make my position. And I sat next to someone who had been in the business as long as I had been alive at the time. And he was the senior anchor and he knew it all and had been here and was established, and I was the rookie and knew nothing. But we were equal at that desk.
Yeah.
And I had to do what was necessary to say, hold on, you know, I'm learning from you, but I'm also your partner in this process.
Yeah.
So not necessarily failure there, but just a battle and hurdles to get over to position myself where I wanted to be.
Okay. At what point, because you've already talked about it, when did Anchor Voice like show up? Like, is there a class like in mastering?
No.
Like I took one.
I mean,
master
there are some vocal classes and there's some vocal coaching that comes into some spaces. There's some news stations that make everybody go to a vocal coach just so you can find your place. There are others that don't. Your voice is your voice. Yeah. And so when I was filling in, it's on YouTube if you ever are bored and want to go look for it. I have this very high pitched voice and I'm a nervous wreck, and that was nerve, right? That was nervousness and being unsure. And then once I got comfortable, the Anchor Voice just kind of happened on its own.
Do you ever tell your kids to pick up their laundry in the Anchor Voice?
No. The Anchor Voice literally happens in moments of standby, and then the good evening sounds different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of like light switch.
I mean, in the studio prior to the show, we're in commercial break, and there's people in there, and we are having dialogue, and we're talking about things, and there are conversations, and you get the standby, and everything just kind of pauses and right back into it. Yeah. I know you're gonna ask me. I know it's coming.
Yeah. When you get off stage, how often do you check the microphone before you go to the bathroom? To like, I'm going to say something, it's going to be like on like.
Well, not all the time. There are times like during the show, like, I'm sorry, I got a weather break. I have got to go to the bathroom. And literally at that point, it's like, well, what I don't want is 200,000 people listening to me in the bathroom. So you're mindful of that. But in between shows, you know, we get off the set at 5:30 and it's 6 o'clock and you have to go prep for the show before. I mean, the show to come. So it's rushed.
Yeah.
And depending on what my attire is for the day, but if I'm wearing a dress, I have a little band that I put around my leg that I slip the microphone on just so it's not in my way and my hands are free. And I forget,
Yeah.
and there's language flying, and there are things that, have nothing to do with what we're doing for the day that come out, and it's like, oh, I really hope the production crew is turn this off. And I really hope that what's happening in Master Control is what should be, because this could literally make or break my career.
And then we talked about that, like, it is the industry where, like, going viral is great. Not in this industry.
No. Not for the wrong thing.
You're not trying to be on a late night show.
I am not.
You're not trying to be
Look at this news anchor. Let me tell you what they said. No, I'm not trying to do that at all.
Unless I get invited, I am not trying to get that.
Right. They call me up and say, come on over. Sure, but to be a part of a collage of mistakes is not
not what you're trying to do. You've also mentioned, I guess, a couple things. You applied for weekends, you applied for morning, you ended up in the evening. Mm-hmm. Once you end up in one of those spaces, you sort of are in that space. Like, is it difficult to transition from, like, let's say you wanted to go to morning, so let's say you wanted to go there. Do people see you as like, no, like you're my nighttime person, you're not?
Industry-wide, there are standards, and going to evenings, is the pinnacle, right? It's morning anchors and weekend anchors often transition to evenings. You don't often see evening anchors who transition to mornings. It happens.
Yeah.
There's definitely, an order, but forget the order.
Yeah.
If there's, an opportunity that presents itself, go for it. I did not think that I would not anchor weekends or mornings before I anchored evenings. That was, again, I did not apply for the job.
Because the order would be.
Because the order would be to do it that way.
It would be a different way.
And it just happened for me that the order didn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, kids, two.
I have two sons. They are 12 and soon to be 9.
They are excited to see mom on TV every night. They would rather you have a different job.
No, it's what they know.
Yeah.
In that time period where we were not on air, October to January, I worked a different shift.
Okay.
So right now my day starts between 2 and 3 o'clock, and then I get off the air at 6:30. There's some post-show stuff that happens, but I'm home by 7.
Okay.
So I'm home for dinner time, bath time, bedtime, all the things, and then I go back to work. And so during our time off the air, I was working more standard schedule that I was like, how do people do this? Like, I'm serious. Like, I was so thrown off.
Like, there's a 9 a.m.?
Right.
What?
Like, I know there's a 9 I mean, I'm up at 5. My day starts at 5 every day.
You don't need to show off. Like, come on.
My day is at 5. It starts at 5. But I'm so accustomed to being able to get things done during the day that I can, if there's a meeting to be had, or if there's groceries to buy, or things at home, that I have all this time before my work day even. Now I'm exhausted, okay? I will say that. It is a long day, but I could get things done. So my schedule shifts to, like a 9:30. I'm like, 9:30? When do people do things? Like, how does this work? And then I'm home in the evening, and it's like, oh, wait, I can go to bed at 9? Like,
exactly.
That was,
This is kind of...
So my kids were like, you're here? Yes.
Had some things planned.
Right,
I was not anticipating
you're gonna
you
be
being
home. You're gonna be home tonight? Yes, I'm home. And so there was the switch back to, okay, I'm back on my normal schedule. And I was worried, the mother in me was worried that the transition back to what would be a little difficult for them, and they've fallen right into place. Will you come in and tell us goodnight when you get back? As I always do. You won't see me, but I'll see you when I get home.
We'll take care of it and stay in that space. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
When you look at kind of where you are now and that 23, 24-year-old just getting into the industry, I mean, how does now align with your thought process or where you were mapping out your future?
It doesn't. It doesn't. 20-some-odd-year-old me didn't think that I would still be here this long. Now I understand, and people ask me all the time, well, why did you stay? There were opportunities to leave, But I decided somewhere along the way that I really didn't want to. If I had to, and I thought I might have had to this past summer, just because of all that was going on, I thought I might have had to go. And I recognized that I love this place, and I love this space, and I love her people, and I made a conscious decision to stay here and raise my children here and live my life here. And in this business, it's often, in some ways, looked down upon if you don't experience the business from another market.
Sure.
And, I tell younger reporters and people who are interested, go. But I don't look at the fact that I didn't go and experience elsewhere as meaning I was unsuccessful.
Yeah.
My success isn't accredited by a market or how many markets I've worked in, or everything that happens in my newsroom happens in newsrooms in New York and LA and Houston and top 10 markets. It's just different. The context is different. The job at the end of the day is the same. You have different staff, and it's it's bigger and it's more people on the receiving end. So 20-something-year-old me thought that I had to go and experience this career somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then once life was happening and the years were rolling by, and my 6 o'clock anchor job became 5, 6, and 10 o'clock anchoring, and okay, I'll experience this for a couple years, and then things were continuing, and I looked behind me and I'm like, whoa, way more years passed than I thought.
Yeah.
And even when the opportunities came, hey, why don't you leave there and come work for us here? And I really had to do some assessments and figure out, is that something that I want?
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And I was doing well, and I was still challenging myself. There were still challenges in front of me, even though I was in the same building, doing some of the same things that I had been in for years prior.
Yeah, like sometimes the younger versions of ourselves do put up these steps and barriers that aren't really there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it has to be like, I should do this and then this and then this and then this. And then you start to do it and you realize, I can skip 3 steps. Like sometimes that happens, like by putting yourself in the right situation.
Life tells you and society tells you to some degree that there's this box with these things in it that you are to do in this order.
Yeah.
And then you experience it and you get your own life experiences and understand, oh, it didn't have to be done in that order. And it does not have to be in the order in front of me that I thought it should be.
Yeah.
I can scramble things up and move these lines around and still come out just fine on the other end.
Yeah. You realize that there's 6 ways you can go. They're all correct.
And that things are not black and white.
Yeah.
There's a lot of color
It's
mixed
more
in
important
there.
that you go.
Just go.
And then you take the right way.
Yeah, like I tell self all the time.
This should be the legal way. Sorry, I just had to make sure we said that. Okay, there we
I
go.
tell myself all the time, just jump.
Yeah.
Whereas years ago, I was standing on the edge. I knew the other side was there, very calculated. What's the wind trajectory like today? How is it going to boost me over? All those things. And now it's like, just do it.
Yeah.
Just jump, and if you fall, get up and try it again and figure it out.
So how do you, especially in your business is people-centered and people-centric, and it's you're the product, I mean, within.
Yes.
How do you differentiate how you do the job, versus like other news anchors? Like, what's the Marcelle way of doing this work?
Doing what we do, there are other examples. You turn on the television and you watch somebody else, and you see their style, and you pick up what you like from certain anchors, whether they be local, national, in between, and then you do what you do. And I told a general manager once that the one thing I can promise you is that I'm going to be the same person when the camera's rolling and when it's not. And so Marcelle's way just kind of happened. There are certain terms that I don't say. There's certain language that I don't read because that's never how I would speak.
Gotcha.
So you mentioned like the teleprompter,
Yeah.
If like due to, I don't say due to. Anybody who's ever produced for me knows that I don't say the words due to. And even if it's in a script, mentally I know, do you say due to in a normal conversation?
I mean,
well, I didn't show up today due to no. I didn't
due
show up.
to the traffic that was on Ambassador, I'm late.
Because it's probably what we're gonna say. But I didn't show up today because thus and so happened. So for me, I hit it, and it's gonna be XYZ happened because of. and I'm finishing the sentence.
Yeah.
Because due to just is not who I am. I'm not a due to formal kind of
Yeah, yeah.
girl.
Yeah.
So my job is to be relatable. And I say, people who know me would be like, what did you say? You say due to all the time?
No, I'm just like,
Oh.
thinking about, I'm going to start probably. I can't think of anything else now. I think due to this conversation. Should be fine.
But seriously, I will see, scripts change right before we come on air, and you get new information, and if there's a due to in there, it is not coming out of my mouth. My mind is going to immediately change that. But that's Marcelle's style.
Yeah.
There's some other anchor who's going to say due to or whatever phrases or read the same information just in a different way because that is theirs.
Yeah.
Through time and experience, it's just kind of happened for me that I know where I'm comfortable. I know how I'm going to write and say things. So kudos to all producers, and they tell us sometimes, like, I hear you in my head, because in conversation we'll talk about, hey, let's look at how we wrote this and how this is coming out, and they will go back and read, oh, I noticed you changed that sentence to say it this way. Yeah, I said it that way because it's just easier to understand, and it's also going to come out of my mouth differently than if I had read it
Sure.
the way you wrote it.
Sure. So as I think everyone in the room.
The fact that there are people in the room,
Yeah, first of all, there were people in the room, which is cool.
it's very
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. Like, there's actually people here.
I know.
You can talk to them. You don't have to just look at me. You can look at them too. Like,
I think
I can go sit over
I've
there
been
if
kind
you
of
want.
fair and balanced here, right?
Yeah, no, you're doing great. But we all have like our general ideas of being a news anchor because of Anchorman. And so like that's probably a pretty accurate depiction of how things work, right? Like you guys go fight other teams and like
No, we do
things
not.
like that? No? That doesn't
We do
happen?
not. There are, when I started at Channel 3 years ago, Darla Montgomery was anchoring there, and she too from Opelousas. Her mother was my high school librarian, and we to this day are dear friends. I say all the time, our jobs make us competitors, but
Yeah.
life makes us friends.
Yeah.
Same thing with Jasmine and people that I've worked with that are now at different stations. Yes, we have a job to do, and it's about viewership, and it's about eyes on the screen, and who watches you and who trusts you enough and establishes that trust with your brand and you as an individual. But we're not fighting, I know, I'm sorry. I hate to do it, but that's not really how it works. Now, when you're out on a story and there's some information to gather, then it's like, hey, good to see you, but hold on. I need this soundbite and I need this information, and if I get it, good for me.
Yeah.
Hope you get it too.
Whenever multiple reporters are there, are you ever like, that was a good question?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean there's a respect for what we do across the board anyway. And if somebody happens to ask, and it's like, oh, okay.
Especially if multiple people there, you're all getting the same sound.
Oh yeah.
You're all getting the same.
And we're all rolling.
There's
Our
a little bit
microphones
of
are
like
out there.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Or you just answered thus and so, and I can piggyback off of.
Yeah, and due to that answer, like let's ask more questions.
Exactly. See.
All right, so there's one thing obviously to break into what is a highly competitive, industry. So you're able to do that just as a person, but also to do that also as a Black woman. Like, do you think about that? Like, there's no way that you can't think. I don't know. Like, does that play a role? Or do you think like
Day in and day
the
out.
idea that you get to go into people's homes that
Might not know anybody who looks like me, or have had anybody else who looks like me in their homes.
maybe like
That's
you
a
do
reality.
1,000 reasons, but like
That's a reality. No, I don't think about it when I walk into the studio every day.
yeah.
I don't think that I'm the Black female sitting next to the white male. That's not what I think. But the reality of that is there.
And if there's someone maybe watching who now that's an opportunity that maybe they would.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, like I am now on television with my natural curly hair, and industry standard once upon a time, and it has changed, and thankful for that, is that anchors had long straight hair. You wore
This is why I couldn't be an anchor.
You wore right, it's one of those
Don't say
things.
right. Come on now.
Hey, we can have this real conversation here.
That's my
Okay?
fault. I'm sorry.
You opened that door. Okay, so so industry standard, and I had long straight hair on television for years, and then I decided I didn't want that anymore, and so now, you know, am I the norm? Yes, because this is my norm, and I get emails and phone calls and meet little girls who look like me and we'll talk about my curls, and it's a thing. So I know it's there. I meet older people who tell me all the time, baby, we're just so happy to see you there, because when I was your age, there was nobody who looked like you on television. So yes, I mean, clearly I'm a Black female. There's nothing that's going to change that. I don't shy away from that. I don't shy away from what it means for me to be in someone's household. I don't act like, you know, there are people who would rather not see me on their televisions. And I have gotten those phone calls, and I've met those people out and about, and it happens, and that's fine. And if I'm not where you're comfortable, you have an option. Change the channel.
We have remotes.
But it's not going to stop me, and it's not going to change what I do or how I do it because it's something that you're uncomfortable with.
Sure. One thing that's, it was obvious when we talked earlier, and you very much take the seriousness of being in people's homes.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Your home is your safe space.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it in that space of like, you really are being in there as if they open the door and let you in.
They do. They make a choice to turn on the television at this time.
Yeah.
Or not even TV, just the TV.
Whatever
you pull up a device and you look at us on an app, or you follow us on social media, whatever. You make a choice. And the trust that people have given us, and I say us, Jim and I as a team, but me as an individual as well, is something that I highly value and I'm extremely humbled by, because trust is one of those things, when you have it, it is to lose it or to never have had it. It's intimate, and it's valued, and it's very delicate, and so I'm very protective of that. I'm very protective of who I am to people who allow me in to their houses and trust what I say in times of tragedy and in just a normal random Tuesday or Wednesday. So it means it keeps me grounded, it keeps me humble. You know, people think, oh, you're the TV lady, and I'm like, no, that's my job. That is what I do. I'm just Marcelle, and the fact that you allow Marcelle into your space is something that's invaluable.
I mean, the trust aspect is something I think that all of our entrepreneurs experience, and it's what we're fighting for. You know, is, you know, you're trusting me with your attention, or with your money, or with your children, or with your loved ones, or whatever it might be, depending on, you know, what the industry is. But it's so
and just
valuable.
like it is, and when you gain that trust, you have to do what's necessary to maintain it. And in business and in news, and you really do, you work at something you work at. Just like relationships in normal everyday life. You know, when you trust someone, it's something you hold on to, and you do your best not to void that trust. And not every time is perfect. You know, not every situation is perfect. And but I think when your intentions are good, whether somebody decides that we are not the channel for them and we are not the anchor team for them, and they go somewhere else, that's fine. You have that option. But I would rather it not be because of something that I did that turned you off. I'm going to be who I am. And if that is the case, then okay, because I'm never going to be disingenuous to myself. And so if Marcelle is just not your cup of tea, Marcelle is okay with that.
Was there or when in your career did you feel like, I'm good at this? Like you guys, like, I might be really good.
I will tell you that I knew, I mean, come on, you know who you are, you know what you do, and you know when you're good at it. There's always growth. I am still growing as a news anchor, still growing as a human being. So have I reached just like the No, I'm not there, even after all these years. However, I will say, during our transition, with our announcement that we were leaving, the way people responded to us, Jim and I never imagined. We knew there would be response. We recognized that we are in hundreds of thousands of people's homes every day. But we live in a world where news isn't appointment television anymore. And so viewership has ebbs and flows, and when people watch, if they watch, how they gather news. And so as news anchors, yes, you're still present, but we know that we're not your only option for gathering information anymore.
Yeah.
And so when we announced that we were leaving, the response literally blew us both away. Yeah. We announced on a Sunday, we did not talk. And so Monday before we went into work, because we had to go to work the next day, we were still there. I called Jim and I'm like, hi. And he's like, hi. I'm like, how are you? And he's like, oh, Marcelle. We were stunned. Yeah. And so this transition and this process and the fact that people knew January 2nd was our first day on air and they knew where we were going, and it was a marker for, okay, well, maybe I have done well, and maybe I can call.
I established that trust. I did the things that I set out to do.
And this equates to being successful.
Yeah. I guess not so much like, maybe it's more of a feeling of this way works. So it's because it's not like you were like, I'm going to do this in order to get their trust, and then I'm going to I'm going to go about it this way, and it was proof that doing it this way works. Yeah.
To switch to something that is not in your habit, we are creatures of habit in lots of ways, and everybody has their habit of where they watch and who they do. Some people flip through all three. Some people watch one and never change the channel. There are others who are curious and going to figure it out when it comes to news. And the number of people who said, I always watched, but I'm moving with you guys, and I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to change my norm. It's like, oh, thank you first for doing something that's different, and we hope that you making that switch becomes the new norm for you.
And then you're like, can you also email me that so I can send it to my boss to let them know?
Like, hey, don't be bashful about the fact that you switched. Feel free to comment, post, email, call.
Let everyone
whatever
know.
is necessary. Tell a friend. Share with someone else. Tell them to switch to.
Doing this particular work for 2 decades, things have changed quite a bit since you started. How's that been, just being in an industry that has changed a lot in 20 years?
It has changed. Sometimes I sit back and think about, wow, just from a technology standpoint and how we do things.
When you started,
we were tapes.
Yeah.
You had, I think I sent my resume tape in on a VHS and an envelope and mailed it to the station. I did, as a matter of fact.
Tell Elijah what a VHS is.
Yeah, Elijah, we'll talk about it after, okay? But I did.
This big.
VCR was laid on. And going out as a reporter, there were tapes. They were smaller than VHSs, so we were transitioning. Yeah. But I still and I sat in the edit bay and I banged on some old equipment and find the point. And now you slide a mouse and you cut it here, and it was none of that. It was legit. You did.
I got this one to work.
The machines were so old that the tape would slip. I'd want to start at this point, but it would roll back 2 seconds, no matter where. So you knew the rollback was there, so you'd have to set it 2 seconds further in than what you wanted. So anyway, all of that. So technology in itself, changed everything about what we do. And then social media, of course. I remember being in the newsroom and when it was a time of, okay, we have to start putting information out when we know it versus waiting until news time. Yeah. We were like, what? No, you wait till news time. No, you don't, because people now have access at all points of the day. Yeah. And so in building trust, we need to be there when they're looking at their phones or they're checking social media or they're searching
Yeah.
your information needs to be there.
Which
So
is crazy. You basically have to be fast enough to be fast, but I'm still trying to be trustworthy.
yes, so I would tell
be
you
fast but not wrong.
a Marcellism.
Yeah.
In one of my ways of doing it, and it doesn't always happen. But I can't say I don't care about being first, but that's not my mission.
Yeah.
I'd much rather
Yeah.
have somebody else to put it out there, but I know more details and I know that it's fact.
Yeah.
I have called and talked and had conversations and confirmed to a point where I am unwavering in what I know. But yes, there is a thing now of get it out there.
Yeah.
Now, do we always know everything the moment we find something out? No.
No.
And so then you just
That's why you have the story updated.
you continue to update. You know, new is first, and we're following and we're on it and we're continuing and we're still asking. And those things are critical at this stage of the game because years ago you had all day until the 5 o'clock news, and so you had all day to gather
To follow a story, to see
follow a story, and then at 5 o'clock, more times than not, I could tell you practically everything, how it started, where it is now, what's coming next.
Yeah.
But now we can't. You don't wait. You find it out. You get it out there, and then you just update as you go along. And then that's something else too. Everybody in some way can be a journalist, and the word journalist is used so loosely these days.
Yeah. Now I feel like it's.
It is. It's a very gray area.
If I've got a phone, I've got a camera, and I can now.
And I can say.
Yeah.
And so we battle that too.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own source of information.
Yeah.
And there are some people who are not into that, or
Yeah.
that's not their thing. But there are others who are like, nope, I know it, and I am now a journalist.
Yeah.
And so information gathering and information intake are very, very delicate. And I tell people all the time, I don't care where you get it from, just make sure you research, and because information is power, and if you're going to be powerful, you need to make sure that you at least are getting valued and trustworthy information from
wherever you're getting it,
whatever source you feel is right, and then making your own opinion.
Yeah.
My job is not to tell you how to think, even though some people think media is out to brainwash folks. That's not my duty.
No.
My job is to give you this side of the story and that one. I present what I know to be fact at the time, and you make your own decision on how you feel, on who you feel is right and who you feel is wrong. That is not my job.
Yeah.
I'm never going to force an opinion down your throat, but I am going to do my part to make sure you are loaded with as much information, fair and balanced, as possible.
So, questions from people. I can ask one more question.
They're like really
while you guys think about questions. If you don't already have one. Do you feel like, I just wonder, or maybe it's a whatever, but maybe at first, because it was so easy to report on things, speed became important. Is there any maybe it's swinging the other way where accuracy maybe is more important than speed, or just
they teeter-totter, right?
Yeah.
Because the deadline is the news still starts at 4:59:30 or whatever the moment is, and you need to have your story for the day in.
Yeah.
There's no, we call it slot. There's no missing slot. Your line in the rundown is there, and your elements for that line need to be in, and they need to be in by the time the show open rolls, and that's late.
Yeah.
So timing and deadline are still big parts of what we do. But information gathering and information output is a little different. So you have a reporter out in the field, and they have just talked to a police chief about whatever has happened.
Yeah.
And yes, we can update to say, we told you at 9 o'clock about an overnight shooting or whatever it might have been. Now at 8, we know this.
Yeah.
In the 10 o'clock hour, I now know this, so I can update you there. But that person is still responsible for a package, a solid, well-rounded. Those are just tidbits that people put up in their day.
Yeah.
And so the deadline, the timing of the day is still critical, but the output of information is where, and always, accuracy goes without saying.
Yeah.
I will ask in a heartbeat, who do we call?
Yeah.
Where?
How do you know that?
Who'd you ask? And how many people did we ask?
Yeah.
oh well, and they're
That part's like talking to my children.
yes, right, mine too.
This happened. How do you know that happened? Who told you that?
And who told you could have that?
Who told you
Where'd
that?
you get that
One
from?
of the best questions you could ask. Who told you that? All right. So questions from anyone who wants to
And if
know
you have
about
none,
the
that's
news.
okay too. No pressure.
I like it.
I have a question.
Yes.
So how, as a person, you talk about gaining trust and all that, so how do you balance that with you being a human being and having opinions on different things and maybe desiring to express those opinions, but then think, well, maybe I can't express my opinion, or is it like, you have like a trustworthy group of people that you're like, I'm
Yes.
gonna give you my opinion.
I mean, I have my circle.
Yeah.
In some ways, I don't, in my professional life, I don't have, I have an opinion. Yes, I live here, I work here, I experience life in the world, and so of course I have one, but my opinion does not matter in what I do day in and day out. I get to exercise the power of my opinion in ways that are confidential, and I'm not trusting of everyone. I have to be very, very careful. The conversation I have at the restaurant can be overheard, and somebody then say, "Oh, what Marcelle Fontenot said, and she's out there doing," and it's like, oh. I am human first, and so whether it's where I spend my money, where I donate my money, how I vote, those are things that I use to voice my opinion, so to speak. But Marcelle, the news anchor, that is not my job, and I walk in that building and I don't have one. I am to be fair and unbalanced. Fair and balanced, not unbalanced. Fair and balanced, and that has allowed me to be able to be trusted. So I'm very, very protective of that. There are conversations that I have been in with friends out publicly, and I'm like, oh no, we're not discussing that at this table. Or I will remove myself.
Yeah.
I have walked away from many conversations just because of what's around me and who's surrounding me. So you just have to know, and you find your own way of still being an impactful member of society, but still being aligning professionally with what you do. And I don't think journalists are the only ones. There are lots of us who are out here in the world and who work in environments where your opinion is not to be at the forefront of what you do every day.
So over the time of your career, the ownership of local media has changed pretty significantly. Can you talk a little bit about that? Now many of our local news outlets are not local anymore. And so you have some say in what's on the news and what's not. How has that shifted over your career?
Greatly. Yes, we all have been owned by companies. All of us, all the stations in the market. And when I started at Channel 3, we were owned by a very small, family corporation, and then we were bought by a big corporation. And so with those changes come changes, hence changes, right? And I still, at the end of the day, can say we're not mandated to, you have to air this and you have to air it this way. That is the one thing I will say about local news, and I'm not speaking for regional or national news in any way when I say this, but we are in a room just like this, filled with people, and we have conversations about the content of the day and what we know and how we put it out there. Does corporate have some influence? Yeah, I made a transition recently because of things that corporate wanted to do that just didn't include me anymore. Am I ever going to be bashful about what I think about our coverage? No. Has there ever been a time that I have removed myself from
A story?
Yes. Because for whatever the reason, I knew that it might not be the greater good for the people we were talking to every day. So just like any business though, you get corporations that come in and we all need to live, You know, I needed a job a few months ago. And fortunately, an opportunity came about that allowed me to still do what I was doing here. I'm now with a new company, and I'm learning new company rules and new company ways and all those things. But you make decisions and you decide, okay, these changes are happening, but how are they really affecting me? Could I have stayed there and done something different? Of course. And I'm not necessarily just talking about 3 and 15. That's not what this is. But whether you work at a hospital, you work at a bank, or does that align? Or a university. Does that align with who I am?
Maybe the university gets bought by someone. I don't know what's going to happen.
But does it align with who I am and what I believe in? And if it does not, then I have the option, just like you have the option to change the channel, I have the option to say, this doesn't fit me anymore. I need to go and find what does. And that's easier said than done. That might take years. You know, that might be a process that takes a very long time, because I have to feed my family and I have to provide for my life. And so I'm just going to work under these terms and conditions that I don't necessarily agree with until I can do something different. So yes, corporate changes and corporate influences, just like anything else, have their impact. They really, really do. But I've never worked in a place where corporate said, this is our vision and this is how we're going to tell news. That hasn't been my experience.
That's good. That's good to know.
I was always curious. I don't know the backside of the TV channel, but when you go live in the community and you given a report of something, and is that on the spot? Do they give y'all script? Do y'all know ahead of time what y'all gonna say?
I don't know if anybody can hear it on Facebook. So the question is about going live and being live. And yes, it depends. So there are situations where we go live. That's something we know, it's something planned, whether it's a meeting or an event that we have an idea of what it's about. And once you get there, you ask people like, okay, what are you here for? What is the goal? What is this? What is that? And then you just tell that information, but you're actually live standing there doing it. Just like you see us at the desk, that's not recorded at 15. We are actually, Jim and I are sitting there in those moments with that information. There are elements of the newscast that are recorded, like we talked about the reporters getting their things in on time and shooting our video. That has been recorded. We just air it live. But then there are situations where I know nothing. If it's breaking news, I know nothing when I get out there. And it's literally a matter of asking questions. And oftentimes, if you're there and law enforcement is involved or emergency responders or whatever the case, they don't know either. They're figuring it out too. But I still have to say something because I have this live shot. And in some situations you talk, and I tell reporters a lot, like if you get out there and police haven't given you anything, or whoever's on scene, whoever's the responsible party at that point, the information provider, and they have given you nothing because they know nothing, then you talk about what you see.
Yeah.
You know there are police on the scene, you know they're at a house, you know they're in this block, you know that people have gathered. I see a fire truck, I see smoke, so okay, there's a fire. There's some conclusion you can draw on your own without the details of that. And you keep it short. You say what you know and you say back to you, because
you don't know anything else.
You don't know anything else.
I know where I am. I'm at the corner of this street and this street.
This is what, and you have to be careful in, this is what I've been told.
Sure.
Because firsthand accounts are great if they are truly firsthand, but every Joe Schmo on the block knows what happened. And you ask one.
I would love to tell you.
Oh, happy to tell you.
Yeah.
People are like, why? This is something we get asked often. Why do you put certain kinds of people on TV?
Because they go change their clothes just to be that person.
Well, not even that, but some people are very intimidated by television, and my job is I'm a visual medium. I'm not print, so I need something visual. And if you tell me this happened at my neighbor's house and this is what I know about how I was outside mowing my grass and I saw XYZ, then I'm gonna take your account for that. Now, I heard, we get a lot of that too. I heard that I don't need, but so that neighbor, regardless of what they look like. I mean, they have to be.
Lots of people cut their grass in their robe, like so. It might
You cut your grass, as long as you got something covering your body.
It's clearly comfortable to be here.
We're
so
not,
let's bring them up.
we're not trying to, display nudity on the news, but if you cut your grass in your robe and that's what you're standing in, and you say, okay, I'm willing to talk, but I'm going to say, okay, tell me what you saw and what you know. So no, we're not always loaded with information when we arrive to do live shots. Some of it is really just figuring it out once you're there.
Other questions? Otherwise, I've got some other questions.
I got one more question.
Okay, good.
Do you read the comments?
So that question was,
Do you read
does
the
she read the
comments?
comments? No one should read the comments.
I don't.
Yes.
I do not, because I am a believer in people. I believe that people are good, and that gets me through what I do every day. And reading the comments might change
Give you
that.
evidence.
and I know, don't get me wrong, I'm not ignoring or not reading comments because I'm trying to live in this perfect world. I tell about why the world is not perfect day in and day out. So that's not why I do it. However, I do need to maintain my own sanity. I'm not a consumer of news all the time because I just can't. I turn off on weekends. Like I turn off unless there's something of some significance that I need to pay attention to. And in the morning before I go to work, I'm not consuming what we're doing. I'll learn it as soon as I get in the building. So no, I do not read the comments. I believe in the good of people, in the good of society, and comments, again, might change how I feel about
might
that.
change that.
So I'll pass. I pass on them on the reg. And I tell people, stop reading the comments. Don't read them. I'm trying, and they're new people who come in and don't have much experience, and people are harsh.
Yeah.
When you live your life on a stage to some degree, and you live your life in front of people, and it's easy to go and sit at your keyboard or use your thumbs and type what you think about someone's performance. But there are real people on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, I was once where you were, and so were they.
Yeah.
And whatever they do in life, they didn't have it all together either. But your life is a little different. If you're an accountant and you messed up some numbers, the only people gonna know that are you and the auditor, right?
Yeah.
But in
the police,
news,
it's
and the
really
police, yeah, if it's really bad,
You
go
just
for it.
don't want to gloss
And
over
then
anyone.
me,
Like,
right?
we don't want to gloss over it. So you go real
The
sideways.
police and then me.
You actually might know.
And
too.
right, I'll know eventually if the
All
police are
kinds of people
involved.
gonna know now.
But when you are in front of that camera and in front of that machine and in front of hundreds of thousands of sets of eyes every day, you put yourself out there, and you got to be able to take the shots, and they come, and I'm like, stop looking at that.
Yeah.
Just know that when you come back in tomorrow, you had a bad day. Okay, so did I. You come in tomorrow, and that's one of the most beautiful things about what we do. Every day is a fresh start.
Yeah.
What we do is the same, but the content of the day and the opportunity to put out a product is a fresh start every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's again, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it is, if I've got a physical location, the next day I open that door.
It's a brand new day.
Opportunity to open
It's a
that
new
door.
customer to walk
thing
in.
Yeah. Like that's,
Who doesn't know what happened in your store or your business the day before.
Yeah.
That person is fresh, and you have an opportunity to build trust with them, to tell them about your product or your good, and them to realize why I need it and why I'm coming back here.
Yeah.
Same thing with us.
Yeah. We talk often sometimes about how the present has all this power, and sometimes we allow the past and the future to take power from the present. It's because I'm worried about things that are tomorrow and next week, and that worry is preventing me from doing things now. But we do the same thing with the past. We let last week's issue, we let
I had a bad quarter.
yesterday's issue
Yeah.
take power from right now, and because right now I can do some impressive stuff, but not if I'm.
Well, and the thing about it is you
can learn.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
not learn.
Learn and use it as power
Yeah.
for the day. And my mother says all the time, and it's something that I hold with me. She's like, you make the best decision you can today.
Yeah.
Like today. And if that decision elements of that decision influence tomorrow, you worry about that tomorrow. But if you're, because I'm that, I'm like, oh, well, this happened, and what is this gonna mean 50 years from now? If I'm even still here 50 years, you know, like, but that's how I would. She's like, today, what are you doing? Make the best decision that you can in the day. And then you do the same tomorrow and the day after and the day after. And it works.
All right, we can't finish better than that. That's gonna be great. Thank you so much for joining. I mean,
Thank you for having
we
me.
didn't even want to talk more about like how do you have a partner and how does that work and how do you but we'll save those for future conversations.
Okay.
And we'll have you back some more.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you everyone else for being
Yeah,
here.
y'all, thank you.
Yeah.
And those who are
absolutely.
watching, like,
People watching.
thank you.
Stay tuned next week. So next week we'll be talking to Claire Cook, who's the founder of Basin Arts, even though she clearly missed an opportunity to be a chef. So we'll probably talk about why didn't she's a cook.
She's so
Come on now. But thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna take care of this. Uh-oh.
Speaking of live microphones, let's turn this one on.